Hello Royals, I'm MsQueenRo and welcome back to a MsQueenRo's adventure. This time I'm in Jackson, Mississippi. I'm finishing up my 50-state U.S. bucket list goal, and I chose Jackson as the city next to go to because I wanted to continue my Black cultural tour around the U.S. So enjoy this vlog and somewhat of a commentary of the places that I've went to while visiting Mississippi. I usually pick hotels that are in the downtown area where usually I stay because I want to make sure that wherever I go I can walk, because I don't usually drive in the cities that I visit. This one that you're looking at now is the Hilton Garden Jackson Downtown Hotel, located on Capitol Street right in the middle of Jackson. And it was a very nice hotel, so we're going to go in and do a short room tour to kind of show you around. As you walk in, you can see it's very spacious, very clean, very serene, and I asked them to make sure to give me a high rise, so the highest floor was the 8th floor, I think it was, and they really gave me a 8th floor view and a city view, although the city view is mostly the train view to the left, as you can see, but it works. I just like being high up when I'm staying in a hotel, especially when there's a downtown view. So looking outside, it was a very nice day. So now let's turn around and look at the hotel. So I have a king size bed, and what I loved about this room is that it had just a chair. I mean, usually there's like a couch, but I don't know, I just kind of just like the chair. Probably a little biased because it's purple, and that's my favorite color. But it just felt like it belonged in this hotel. Oh, and by the way, formerly this hotel name was King Edward Hotel. It was that name for many years until they had a fire, I think it was, and they closed it down for 4 years and did a renovation. So now you're looking at the renovated side of the hotel. Pretty large TV, and it was a nice desk, because I have to have a desk because I'm always working when I'm traveling. As you saw, that there was a microwave, a coffee maker, and a refrigerator. I did not realize that I was getting all that in this room, so I don't know if they just gave it to me, but it worked because I was able to bring back my food many times throughout my trip that week. The bathroom, very clean. Loved there was a stand-up shower. It was not a tub, which is fine with me because I don't ever use tubs at home, or definitely not in a hotel. And as you can see, that the sink and everything was very nice and very modern. So really love this hotel. Now let's go outside and walk. Looking at the streets of Jackson, very clear day that day. But the main reason why I wanted to kind of have you all Royals walk with me is because so you can see how Jackson is. So you're going to hear me comment on a few things like this for number one. Now, although it looks abandoned, looks a little run down, this was actually an area that they were actually renovating so that you can see the reconstruction of Jackson. And I love seeing that because anytime you're in like a historical type city, I love seeing that how it comes into like modern days. It was very quiet that week. I was actually on this week during spring break and kind of surprised that it was very empty. But then again, who visits Jackson on their spring break? Only me. I love taking video recordings of architecture. Right there is the Capitol building for downtown. And I'm actually on my way now to the major museum. It's one of the biggest civil rights museums in the Deep South. And I wanted to make sure that you kind of captured and walk with me as I show you downtown on the way going. It was about a 15-minute walk from my hotel. Just looking at the buildings, again, I love looking at architecture. These buildings are a few hundred years old, some of them, so I really wanted to just kind of put them in the video. It goes with the cultural tour that I'm on right now. Alright, finally made it to the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum, and across the street was this great mural I wanted to take a video of. What I did not notice is that when I walked in, it's actually two museums in one. One side is the historical Mississippi side, and the other side is for the civil rights. I didn't realize that. And as you saw, the prices range about $15 for adults and discounted for seniors and students. This was a neat little area that I had to wait in before I actually went inside. touch screen. Anything touch or buttons that want to touch. But you touch it and then it kind of gives you a historical fact on what it was. I remember that Wheaties box actually. Now we are in the Native American side. And again, I chose to go to the historical Mississippi side first before I went into the civil rights, just to kind of go in chronological order. And this is actually where it starts in the beginning of the early days of Mississippi. And we all know is that the Native Americans were here first before all of us. And looking at what we're now is some of how they lived. And I believe I'm pronouncing the tribe right, Choctaw or Choctaw. Forgive me if I say that wrong. But this is how they lived back in their days. Some of the clothing that they wore and some of the artifacts and things that they use, bowls and things they used to cook with. This part was interesting because it shows a timeline of how we went from Indians on to where colonizers came until African Americans came, or I should say enslaved people came. And those marbles showed from red. They had red marbles, white marbles, and black marbles to kind of depict that. This was just a great picture of how we're now going into the shaping of a state and of this state. And as we can see, we're going actually now into the slavery part of it, where colonizers were coming in, moved the Indians out, and moving enslaved people in from Africa. One fun fact here that I learned about, number one, cotton was the main crop in Mississippi. But more than that, the main reason why they moved the Choctaw Indians out wasn't because they wanted the land just because. It was because the crop, cotton, was coming so prominent that they needed more land. So they bribed them, convinced them, forced them out, the Indians out, just so they can have more land to crop the cotton. I didn't realize that. This was very interesting, the enslaved people's quarters. Now look at the three types of quarters that you're going to look at now. This is the enslaved one. This, typical of what you're going to see with enslaved people. I mean, we had one room, that was it, and you had to sleep, eat, go to the bathroom, cook, all of that in one room. Now we're looking at the farmer's quote unquote modest home, where maybe they didn't own slaves, but they lived in what they call a small wooden home, and this is what it looked like. Now, this is one room, but some of the rooms from a farmer had maybe two in there, but this is the main room. They had the living room, they cooked and everything in that room as well. Still bigger than what you just saw with the enslaved one. Now we're looking at the wealthy planter's home. Much different, obviously, than what you're seeing from the other two homes. This is just one room of the house, but just know these are usually mansions, plantation mansions that had multiple rooms in the house, up to 12 or 10. And this was actually the home of a real family. I don't remember the family's name, but that was what they looked like. And of course, they bought their furniture. All right, so now we're moving into the Confederate side, because we all know that we are in Mississippi, and that is what was prominent in those days. And also, this was during the Civil War time, so Mississippi was automatically a Confederate state. Just wanted to kind of capture this and kind of just see it in hand and read some of the facts of how it went during the Civil War times. All right, now we're back in the fun part where we're getting into the more modern days, more mid-century, or moving into mid-century, 1900s. Still a little bit in the 1930s and 40s first, but we're about to hit where Black people loved music and wanted to show and learn more about it. So this is, firstly, before we get to that part, this was where how they lived in the modern days. Okay, now we're getting to what they call, quote unquote, the juke joint. I would have loved to go into the juke joint back then just to see how it was. I know that's like a olden day club, but I think they had way more fun than the regular club dates now, and they dressed way better back then too, my opinion. Anyway, this was a really neat room because you went into the room and it was actually a real juke joint box. You press the button and it would actually play on the screen the name of the person that's playing. I wish I could have let you guys hear it, but it would have cost me a YouTube copyright claim, so I didn't want to do that. But you can see how it works. I love this museum because it was very, very, very technical, innovative. I mean, they had buttons everywhere, which, by the way, what you're seeing in this video is probably not even half, or maybe a little bit close to half of what I recorded. Please know that you should visit this on your own because you will see way more than what I recorded. You're just getting a taste of what I recorded while visiting this museum. I love this part. This is actually the end of this first part of the museum. They allowed anybody in the public to record themselves a message that they want to leave, and you are allowed to leave it, and then anybody can hear it when they visit the museum. All right, so now I've walked over to the other side of the museum of the building and gone to the civil rights part of the museum. Notice this guy, Hezekiah Watkins, close up on this because there's a reason why, and now.
We all know that was a lie because Mississippi became ground zero. Which meant it was the worst of the Freedom Riders.
All right, sir, if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Hezekiah Watkins. I live here in Jackson, Mississippi. I was one of the original Freedom Riders.
I was granted private access to interview him because I'm a content creator. And if you'd like to hear it, be sure to hit the link in the bottom of the description box to listen to his private interview I did in another video. All right, so now we are in the civil rights part of it. I love this part because it was very, very informative, which, by the way, you are going to need, honestly, you need about 2 days to visit this building because the historical side took me probably about 3 hours. And then by the time I got over to the other side, I had the private interview with Mr. Watkins. That was almost an hour. It was actually about to rain, and of course I told you earlier that I've been walking, so I wasn't able to spend a lot of time on the civil rights side as I would have wanted to. I almost regretted it, but then I'm like, well, if I would have went to this side first, then again it wouldn't have been in chronological order, and the way my mind works, I like to go from start to finish. So I say that to say, you pick which side you want to go to first while you're visiting here. But if your main reason is to just learn about more civil rights, then probably it would be best for you to visit this side first because there's a lot of reading on this side. I love this side because it had many art or creativity, the way they built it up. I mean, they had a makeshift jail. There were a lot of exhibits in this part that had reenactment of how things looked back in the civil rights days. I loved it. Well, we are coming to the end. Again, I did not spend as much time on this side, but shoot, maybe that was done intentionally so that you guys can come to yourself and visit this. Please make sure to subscribe so you won't miss out on my next MsQueenRo adventure.